Hello, I'm Rex Childhouse, and because things on the internet seem to lose their date references pretty easily, today is Friday, February 24th, 2023. I think this is actually going to be video 12, maybe 13 of our Wish of a Lifetime AARP trip to Bastogne, Belgium. To recoup, if you haven't watched the earlier ones, my dad was with the 101st Airborne Division during the Battle of the Bulge, during all of Europe, World War II. And one of the things he'd always wanted to do in his lifetime was go back to Bastogne and thank the locals for supporting the 101st Airborne Division and all of the Allies, because, well, the 101st was the major numerical number inside the encirclement of Bastogne. There were a number of other military units. My dad always wanted to go back and say thanks because of all the support that the locals gave them, and he had some really interesting stories, covered some of them in the other videos. He was never able to. He died of cancer while I was serving during my career as a naval aviator, and things just happen. So I get a email after a couple of bad nights. AARP, Wish of a Lifetime, we're looking for submissions, and I filled it out. I really filled out my dad's wish, and kind of stated that since my dad can't fulfill his wish anymore, maybe I could. And then the saga goes on, and in August of 2022, Wish of a Lifetime and AARP sent my wife and myself on a whirlwind trip to Bastogne, Belgium, where the Battle of the Bulge was fought. And that trip was probably one of the 5 most emotional events in my life. So what happened yesterday, Thursday, February 24th, February 23rd, 2023, is I got a packet from Wish of a Lifetime, and a stack of letters that they've received, and they're forwarding them to me. There's a stack of them here, and I'm going to go through them because this trip is extremely emotional to me, far more than I didn't know what to expect. It's still extremely emotional to me. My wife and I talk about this trip quite often. We walk every night after dinner, even in stormy weather. It's raining right now in Southern California, and you know, we are on our 10th or 11th storm for the winter. We talk about this trip quite a bit. I talk about it with other people quite a bit. It's still emotional, and these letters last night, I got them yesterday, read all of them yesterday, and I must have woken up last night 10-15 times thinking about these letters. I am so thankful for Wish of a Lifetime for granting the wish, AARP for working with them, and for the people of Bastogne, because as my dad would say, they kept him and the Allies alive, and a lot of people contributed to the success of the Allies during World War II. So I'm going to, in detail, kind of in detail, I'm going to go through these letters and show you what I got. And the reason I do that is because this trip was extremely emotional to me. To hear other people tying into it, expressing their gratitude for Wish of a Lifetime allowing me to go and complete my dad's wish. it's one of the many facets of this trip. We've learned that this trip didn't end when we got back to San Diego. This trip continues. We talk about this trip quite a bit. I wake up in the middle of the night, think about this trip, think about my dad, think about my mom. She was a Navy, a wave volunteer during World War II. And my father-in-law was a Navy machinist mate during World War II, stationed in the Western Pacific, Australia and the Philippines. So I'm going to show you these cards and run through them and address some of the specific comments. I'm going to try and address everybody who sent them by name, because I really appreciate it. I do. So let's move on to the cards. And to wish of a lifetime, Rajeen, who was our counselor for this trip, for AARP. There's not enough ways to say thank you. With all of the things I've done through my Navy career, through my life, this ranks as one of the 5 most emotional, and it's still emotional. I don't think it's ever going to lose the emotional impact. Let's move on to the cards. This is the first one, and unfortunately I didn't realize till I just looked at it. I flipped the cover. The cover is the heart with the paper airplane going away from it. And as a naval aviator, I've been flying for, well, since I was 16 years old. As a pilot, a student pilot at 16, licensed at 17. And this was obviously a Valentine's Day card. Really appreciated it. As I said in numerous other things, I have 4 pseudo grandkids that I call them my next door neighbors. The oldest one just turned 10. We just had Valentine's Day. My wife and I made them numerous Valentine's things and kind of made them laugh and smile. We have a ball. This one, I wish I knew who it was from. I really appreciate it coming my way. I believe this card is from Samira, and I apologize for mispronouncing her name. And she says, and I appreciate her comments. I truly miss my dad. Since the trip to Bastogne, I think I've been thinking more about my dad for obvious reasons. The ties are tighter now than they've been in a long time. I really appreciate her comments. The left side of this is the front of the card. The right side is the narrative of the card. And I wish I could pronounce her name. Nesmira, maybe? I wish, and I apologize for mispronouncing it, and I'm assuming it's a female. This is another unnamed card, most likely associated with Valentine's Day. And all dads are wonderful. So tall, brave, and cool. Let's give a hooray for dads everywhere and be ever glad. I am really thankful for my dad. I remember being over my dad's shoulder. This card, I just looked at it and had to step back and pause. A number of these cards brought tears to my eyes. This is a 2-page letter from Christy, and I'll show you the second page as I continue here. And she brings up a point that I kind of knew without realizing it, one of those types of issues. And chances are there were a number of World War II veterans. Well, we know there were a number of World War II veterans who wish they could have returned to Europe under better times, to see where they fought, to see what's happened to the countries, to the areas, to the towns, to the countryside that they fought for, and to see what they've become, which is kind of what my dad wanted to do. My dad wanted to say thank you. We met a number of people in Bastogne on our trip. We still keep in contact with a couple of them. And Christy brings up, maybe there's wish number 4, in the fact that maybe my trip, my wife's trip, opened a door for other veterans who couldn't go back, for the families of other veterans who didn't quite understand what it was or look like what it was. And one of the things that really came through in this trip, totally coincidental, was the weather wasn't great. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't great. It was rainy, misty, cool but not cold. And my dad said it was the worst, coldest weather he'd ever been in his life, and he'd done almost 2 years in the Aleutian Islands. So he was familiar with cold, plus we're from Chicago, so we're familiar with cold. This is page 2 of Christy's letter. A lot of things, and these cards bring back a lot of the emotion of the trip. None of them are disappointments. As I said, it was one of the most emotional things in my life. And Christy's letter really brings it back forward. And all I can do, Christy, thank you very much for your letter. Yeah, there was a fourth wish. My third wish, one I didn't realize till it happened, it gave my wife and I a place to get back to. She'd recently retired from teaching grammar school, and so now we're both completely retired, so to speak. And Bastogne gave us a place to reconnect to each other, and now we've been married for 50 years, 7 months. So we're working at it, so to speak. Christy's letter really brought back a lot of emotion, and I really appreciate her letter. Thank you very much. This is a letter from Elizabeth. The top half of this image is the cover of the letter, and the bottom half is the inside text. And Elizabeth, thank you. The Desert Storm, the Gulf War, was my last time in hostilities for the United States government. I still think that the real personal benefits of my career were the humanitarian actions, flying into earthquake, tsunami, pandemic, floods, whatever, doing the humanitarian work that our government does. And that's the primary purpose of our U.S. military, is carry out the foreign policy of the United States government. That's the stuff that stays in my mind. And Elizabeth talks about her volunteer work with the Red Cross. I've done a number of Red Cross volunteer missions as well. It feels so good at the end of the day to walk away from something dog-tired, cold, wet, whatever, and feel like you accomplished something for the betterment of society. And Elizabeth, thanks very much for your letter. Thanks for your volunteer work. I have a sense of humor. My wife harasses me about it all the time. I make jokes when stuff comes up on television. When I opened up this card and immediately paused, going, why are these pop bottles upside down? And then opened up the card and realized I had the card upside down, and realized these were not pop bottles with lids above them. They were exclamation marks. I just started laughing. I wish she'd put a name on the card. She talks about her dad's service during World War II. I'm assuming it's a female. She talks about her dad's service during World War II in the Pacific Theater. As I said, my father-in-law, Hilly Hansen, was stationed in Australia and then up in the Philippines as a machinist made first class with the Navy. And my wife and I lived in Japan with our family for 5.5 years. I lived in the Philippines for another 2. I left them behind for that particular tour, so we didn't really screw up everything. And during that time is when we had the earthquake in Baguio, and the hotel collapsed, and then Mount Pinatubo blew up. It was not a good time for the Philippines. Got to do a lot of work associated with that. Had a couple of tsunamis go through. To hear other people tying in to what their parents, what their grandparents did during World War II because of our trip is,
I hadn't thought about that until I got these cards, and I hope that they get an appreciation for what it took for us to accomplish as the Allies the victory in World War II. We are fighting two forces, the Japanese and the Germans, and it's tough when you're fighting on left and right sides, and I appreciate those that allowed us to keep our country free, and I appreciate those that say thanks for doing it. Another fun put a smile on your face card. Thank you very much, Yolanda. I have a lot of books on World War II, a lot of books on the 101st Airborne Division during World War II. Rendezvous with Destiny was written by two of the members of the 101st Airborne, and they're the basis for the movie, for one of the numerous movies. Then numerous World War II history books are written, and the vast majority of them are very, very good. And Yolanda's talking about reading them. To correlate visually and physically with what my dad talked about being in Bastogne, and to stand there and look at the area and realize his desire for a farm, for agriculture, and then see the agricultural areas of Bastogne and the farmlands and whatever else, tied in a lot of heard, felt, understood things that they're kind of like loose ends, and then all of a sudden a comb straightened them all out. And Wish of a Lifetime AARP really straightened out a lot of or made a whole lot of things in my life come out stronger than they were, because now I understand from being there, from standing there, and the weather was beautiful for that fact. It was cool, it was overcast, it was rainy, and not as bad as the conditions that were during the Battle of the Bulge, but I think it would have been disrespectful, and I'm laughing, I think it would have been disrespectful to be there on a 72 degree 75 degree clear day with a light breeze. Thank you, Yolanda. I couldn't quite read the name on the bottom of this. I think this is from Tina, and she included, and I'm assuming it's Tina, she included two pictures. This is her note, and one of the photos had the clip on the back, and it shows the two photos credited to the 101st Airborne Division. We've scoured every photo that we could find of the 101st Airborne, looking for photos of my of my father, realizing there are 11,000 plus people in the 101st Airborne at full strength, and because of injuries, rotations, whatever else, there are probably 15 to 17,000 or more. Looking for one face is kind of tough. I appreciate the pictures. We are keeping a folder of many of the souvenir photos, ticket stubs, airline tickets, whatever, for this trip, and all these cards are going in that folder, and they're being kept as they are. So these are lifelong memories. Thank you. This is a card from Michelle, and the top half is the front of the card, and the bottom half is the text inside of it. And Michelle's card, like many of these cards, I read the card, sat back and just thought of the many thoughts that have gone through my mind based on a number of things. Michelle lost her brother in September of 2022, and was able to get a military funeral for him due to his service, Vietnam 1966 to 1970, by her letter. And that would put him in Vietnam, even if he only did 1 year with 4 years of service in the Army during that time frame. Even if he only did 1 year in Vietnam during that time frame, her brother was in a living hell, and he deserves every honor possible. They stood up and protected the rights of a people that probably until a year before they went, they didn't even know the country existed. Michelle, thank you very much. Sorry to hear about your brother. Unfortunately, we lose the Vietnam era vets every single day due to age, due to many other conditions. Sorry to hear about your brother. Thank you for your letter, and thanks to him for his service to our country. It means a lot, and through my career I found out that there's a lot of people doing a whole lot of things that they aren't being thanked enough for, so thank you and your brother. This is a letter from Betty. I believe it was on 8.5 by 11 bond, and Betty, thank you very much. My dad was the paratrooper, 101st Airborne, and if he had not survived World War II, I obviously wouldn't have been born. I'm only 71 as of 2023. So I did my tour in the United States Navy, starting in 1995, ending in 1975, ending in 1994. And I agree with you. Volunteering, trying to make the world better. You go home at night, you tried, and that's the key. You may not always succeed. Particularly when I was working with the Red Cross, there were needs that were coming up that we just simply could not resolve. But we tried, and it's disappointing to fail, but sometimes the needs are just beyond what we can do. However, we fail if we don't try. And I appreciate your service. I enjoyed doing all the volunteer work I've done. I still like to volunteer. It makes the day better at the end of the day. Cynthia, thank you for your letter. Thank you for your comments. I love making toys. I love making people smile, laugh, giggle, whatever. And because of my 4 next door neighbors in particular, because I get to see them. If I donate toys to the VA Medical Center or to the Naval Medical Center San Diego, I don't see where they go. I know they go someplace. I assume they go someplace, but I don't know where they go. I don't know how they end up. So that's just kind of, one of those doors you open and kind of close. But with my next door neighbors, with my granddaughter, I see where they go, and I see what it does to their faces. I see what it does to your life. I take my walks frequently during the day, and some of my toys will be out on the driveway or in the yard being played with, and because of that, I just walk down the street and smile. Volunteer work, trying to make the world better tomorrow. Which is what our military was doing during World War II in Europe, and quite honestly, I think Bastogne was one of the major successes in accomplishing that, and I really wish my dad had been able to see it. So he's in heaven. I assume he's watching over me, so he knows I made it. And I really enjoyed talking to the people at Bastogne. They were so courteous. The vast majority of them knew a lot of detail about the Battle of the Bulge, from their parents, from their grandparents, whatever. So it was quite a trip. This card is from Marianne. She's a volunteer with Wish of a Lifetime, which I sincerely appreciate. Without Wish of a Lifetime, chances of this wish ever, these 3 wishes ever of occurring, these 4 wishes ever of occurring, opening up the environment to people who couldn't or didn't make the trip. These wishes would have never happened. I'm not sure how they would have happened. And I sincerely appreciate Wish of a Lifetime and their correlation with AARP for doing so. And Marianne, thank you very much for your letter. As I've said before, there's a lot of factors that make life worthwhile. What really struck me about this, though, was the cover of the letter, the forest. During our time in Bastogne, we spent quite a bit of time on the battlefield and around the area, and this is actually representative of a lot of the area that we were in. The trees, the paths really brought back where we were, what we saw while we were in Bastogne. So whether it was intentional or accidental, coincidental, whatever, this card really brought back a lot of Bastogne. Jack's Woods, the battlefield where the foxholes were, whatever else, a lot of it's forested area. And my dad talked about being in the forested area. Where he fought is now a field, but at the time it was a forest. So this card really hit home. This note is from Julia. And Julia, you struck a chord. You're a retired VA nurse. I thank you very much for that. I will tell you that a career in the U.S. military is a very satisfying career, but very hard on the human body. And I see way too much of VA Medical Center San Diego, which now has a Army captain who she grew up here in San Diego County. She was killed in Afghanistan, and they've renamed the hospital, and unfortunately I don't know the name offhand. I really appreciate the fact that they did that. The VA Medical Center here in San Diego is absolutely super, and between them and my wife, I think that's why I'm still alive. They take a number of things. Thank you for being there. I never regret going to my VA Medical Center for all the comments that you hear on the news about how bad some of the centers are and whatever else. Ours is super, and I really appreciate them standing behind me. Some of the cards just make you smile. You sit back and you look at them and you just smile, and you just, thanks just flows through your brain, flows through your heart. This was one of them. Cupid Crew from AARP, and Wish of a Lifetime AARP. And looks like it was written, I'm going to say, by a 4th grader. My wife retired from being a 6th grade instructor, and I would occasionally help over there. It's cards like this that just make you feel good. I wish they would have put their name on it. I would love to say thanks, so I'm going to say thanks Johnny, thanks Jane, whoever it was, thank you very much. When I go to Disneyland and we do the drawing academy and the animation academy and do drawings, I tell the families that are there, remember to put your names and the dates on your drawings so you know who did them and when they were done. And whoever did this, thank you very much. This is going to be a 2-scene card. The front of the card has all these birds on it. We have I think 4 seed bird feeders on our property so that we can watch the birds. We have 4 hummingbird feeders on our property. I love to watch the birds come in. We have ground squirrels, occasionally get coyotes. We used to have a roadrunner coming through. We named him Leroy. Haven't seen him in a while. I got this card and it was just so appropriate, so to speak. Birds on the front of it, and I just paused. And this is the inside of the card from Ann Poole. And I was set back by her insert. On the feather was an insert, and Tandy Leather and the Department of Veterans Affairs has gotten together and a little while ago they had an event where you could make leather feathers and send them off to Tandy, and Tandy strung them up and displayed them in I think it was the Cincinnati VA Medical Center, and they were going to hopefully get them to tour the country in the VA medical centers. I made 2 feathers for him, sent them off, had a lot of fun with it, and have since gotten back into leatherworking, partially because of that. And feathers, depending on where you want to research, they represent fallen warriors in some sects, in some tribes, Native American groups, South American groups, whatever. In other groups, they represent strength, they represent faithfulness, they represent loyalty. They've come to represent in our U.S. military fallen comrades. And going along with that, a green light on your house at night indicates support for the U.S. military. So, Anne, when your letter came through with the feather, and I'm keeping all of these, we now have a folder for the material stuff that we brought home from our trip to Bastogne to Belgium. This letter is going that way too. And I agree with the comments. I hope I believe my dad saw Bastogne and what it had developed into from his position in heaven. So I think he's pleased. And this is the last letter I've got. As I said, this was in a very emotional trip for me, more emotional than I ever thought it would be. To say thank you to Wish of a Lifetime, their association with AARP, to all the people that sent these cards in, and probably other people who sent cards in that didn't make it through the system for some reason. All I can do is say thank you. I got this yesterday, Thursday, February 23rd, 2023. And last night I woke up numerous times just thinking about these cards and smiling, and several of them brought tears to my eyes. This trip, the consequences of this trip have been extremely emotional, extremely beneficial, and all I can do is say thanks to Wish of a Lifetime, AARP, all the people who contributed to it, the people who acknowledged the trip, such as these letters, and we've discussed this trip with numerous people now, and we discussed this trip very often. We were walking the other night in the rain, and we were talking about how actually nice it was to be in the rain in Bastogne to see the battlefield during the trip. And as I said, I think that was appropriate weather. I think 75-80 degrees, clear skies, light winds would have been inappropriate to view the battlefield. So thank you to everyone associated with this, and thanks to the guys and gals in the U.S. military that kept me alive during my career. There were a number of them. Thank you very much. Hope you enjoyed it.